Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting task today, diving into Pietro Ubaldi's The System. You've given us some fascinating source material,
hmm
and our goal is to really distill the core ideas for you, our learner. Think of it as getting to the heart of some pretty big concepts creation, the fall, evolution as reconstruction.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can unpack these complex ideas without it feeling too overwhelming, maybe spark a few aha moments.
Exactly.
And the source itself, these excerpts from Ubaldi, they lay out this incredibly comprehensive vision, don't they? It's this blend of, well, philosophy and spirituality.
Right.
What's really striking is how he describes his own process. He talks about this initial inspirative insight, almost seeing the whole picture at once.
Yeah.
And then comes the rigorous part, logic, reason, seeking evidence. He even compares it to Galileo.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, Galileo didn't just rely on scripture. He looked through his telescope, right?
Yeah.
Ubaldi argues for that kind of direct inquiry, combined with reason. He stresses this interconnectedness of everything, even opposites, and this whole cyclical nature of existence.
Okay, so that sets the stage. We're going to explore these core ideas, the system and its opposite, the anti-system.
Mm.
We'll look at his take on the fall, not as destruction, more like a
A
reorganization.
shift, yeah.
And then evolution, not random, but a specific journey back towards unity or
Okay.
reconstruction.
Precisely. And tied into that is how we know things, this interplay between intuition, those gut feelings, and our logical minds.
Right, the limits of our understanding, too.
Yeah, and this constant struggle he sees between these opposing forces shaping our reality. It's a really grand vision.
So let's start with that methodology. You said it's a mix of intuition and logic. He starts with an inspirative insight, like seeing the whole puzzle.
That's how he puts it. A synthetic overview, a holistic grasp.
Mm-hmm.
And this is key, he doesn't just leave it there. He follows it up immediately with intense logical analysis. It's like climbing down from the mountaintop view to meticulously check the details on the ground, looking for proof.
That two-step process.
Exactly, that defines his approach.
And he respects tradition, but he's really pushing for that direct look, like Galileo.
Right, look for yourself. He even said writing the system was part of clarifying it all, even convincing himself more deeply.
That shows a certain intellectual honesty, doesn't it? Self-criticism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Constantly questioning, even his own big insights.
Okay, now this theory of the fall, you mentioned it's central, tied into his great synthesis. It's not just a side note for him.
Oh, absolutely not. It's foundational. And again, it's not about annihilation. It's a transformation, a disorganization of an original perfect state.
A disorganization.
Yes.
Cool.
And the great synthesis is the framework for understanding it, not as just something bad, but a phase in a much larger cosmic cycle.
He also mentions two ways we tend to think deductive and inductive. Can you break that down in his context?
Sure. So deduction is top down. Start with a general principle, work down to specifics.
Okay.
Induction is bottom up.
Uh-huh.
Start with specific observations, build up to a general idea.
Right.
Ubaldi sees that initial inspiration as like a deductive overview, seeing the whole forest.
And science.
Science is more inductive, examining the individual trees, the details on the ground. He says you need both for the full picture.
So inspiration gives the initial framework, the big picture.
That's his argument. He feels science, while great at detail, often dismisses those broader insights from inspiration.
Which he thinks is a mistake.
A big one. He says use inspiration as a starting point, hypothesis, then use scientific rigor to test and develop it, descend the mountain, explore the terrain with reason.
And it's significant that he's skeptical himself in that analytical phase, really testing his own intuitions.
Crucial. He doesn't just accept the insights, he actively tries to find flaws, questions, assumptions, introduces doubt. It's a powerful mix of intuition and self-critique.
Let's shift to another core idea, opposites. He says everything is based on this, like the system and anti-system.
Yes, absolutely fundamental for him. Affirmation comes from contradiction. You only know what something is by knowing what it is not,
So they seem like they're in conflict.
but they're actually interdependent. You can't really conceive of one without the other. It's the tension between them that drives everything.
Which leads us to God and creation. He talks about starting with the synthesis in the system and then giving the rational proof.
Exactly. Starting with the big picture, how it all fits, and then providing the grounding. He frames our understanding within the context of the absolute, that ultimate reality beyond our senses.
So we can't perceive God directly, but we understand through the effects in our world.
Precisely. We see the consequences, the effects, and they point back to the origin. like studying an artist's work to understand the artist.
And his idea of the Trinity three moments, not quite the traditional view, is it?
No, it's different. He sees it as three phases in the creative act: Spirit, the conception; Father, the word or action; and Son, the created being.
But all the same God.
Yes, the same God in different moments of self-expression, not separate entities. God remains the all-one, manifesting dynamically.
And the result was this perfect first creation, pure spirits in harmony.
That's the vision. God multiplied into infinite beings, but within God's self. A transformation from simple unity to complex, organic, hierarchical unity.
Governed by divine law.
Right, a perfect creation of spirits, total harmony. Light without shadow, joy without pain.
But then the fall. Not annihilation, but a departure from that order. What caused it?
The harmony depended on each being staying within its limits, its function. He suggests an exaggerated self-expansion, an egoistic push beyond those boundaries caused the imbalance.
So a disruption, moving towards individualism.
Precisely. Overreaching disrupted the equilibrium. This sets the stage for understanding our current position.
Which he sees as a long evolutionary path, trying to overcome animalism and reabsorb anti-system qualities back into the system. What does that look like?
Think of it as moving from ignorance to knowledge, from materialism towards spirituality, from pain towards joy.
Okay.
That underlying dissatisfaction we feel, that longing for something lost. He says that's the engine driving this progress.
And God is waiting at the end.
At the culmination of the journey, yes, ready to welcome us back to unity.
Which brings us to the anti-system itself. He says we need to understand it to understand ourselves. How's it defined?
It's where that organic sense, each part existing for the whole, is lost or weakened.
Right. The system is interconnected.
In the anti-system, it's more about existing for oneself, the strongest dominating. The revolt inverted the system's cooperative hierarchy into the anti-system's competitive anarchy.
And humans are caught in the middle.
Exactly. Pull between matter's impulses, anti-system, and spirit's aspirations system.
That constant internal struggle.
Yeah.
Selfish desires versus higher spiritual ones.
That's a key part of our current existence in the anti-system, according to him.
And the ultimate goal of all this, where are we heading?
Towards truth. Complete understanding. He stresses impartiality, even questioning his own insights. He felt his work addressed gaps left by religion and philosophy.
And he points out divine law operates whether we believe in it or not.
Right. And evolution itself is this reconstruction, piecing things back together.
We're in the anti-system now, where the perfect thought got disorganized, but not destroyed.
Correct. Evolution is systematically rebuilding that thought as our consciousness matures. The path is predetermined by divine law, he believes. And as we evolve, our minds open, leading to more conscious alignment with it.
But he admits our current vision is limited.
Absolutely. Inspiration gives us a bigger picture, but it's still limited by our evolutionary stage. It might explain how creation worked, but not necessarily the ultimate why. Some questions remain beyond us for now.
Okay, let's dig into God the Creator. God is the center, the first cause, but can't be defined. That sounds paradoxical.
Well, he says defining means limiting. Since God is infinite, encompassing everything, you can't put boundaries around the absolute.
But we try to understand.
Yes, often by projecting the perfections we regain through evolution, or glimpse intuitively, onto an infinite scale.
So our understanding of God evolves as we evolve.
Exactly. Creation resulted in God as an organic unity of diverse parts. Disorder comes from individual ego, prioritizing self over the whole.
And he's clear. Divine substance is spiritual, not material.
Yes. The dualism we see, spirit versus matter, suggests something significant happened after the initial spiritual creation.
The fall again.
That points back to that. Otherwise, where did matter come from in a purely spiritual beginning?
This ties back to hierarchy and obedience in the original system.
He saw that hierarchy as essential for order, keeping God central. Beings had perfect knowledge for their position. Obedience was needed for things beyond their individual scope, like cells obeying the body's signals.
In the fall, the expulsion came from disobedience. But why disobey perfection?
He suggests it was a desire for more utility, more fulfillment outside the system's order. A free will choice to expand beyond intended limits.
So the consequences were a test.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who would willingly stay in harmony? Who would venture out? The system wasn't about forced obedience.
It relied on willing adherence, understanding.
Exactly. Forced obedience contradicts the freedom and love at its core. Willing acceptance was the natural response of free beings who saw the perfection.
Then there's this cycle of involution and evolution. The fall starts a whole circuit.
Yes, involution. Descent from spirit through energy to matter, evolution. The set back up matter to energy to spirit,
And matter is the furthest point from God.
the periphery of the anti-system. This cycle explains the tension we feel between spirit and matter.
He tackles that tricky question too. Were spirits too wise to fall or too ignorant to be blamed?
He refutes that by saying their knowledge was proportional to their place in the hierarchy. Not all-knowing, not totally ignorant. They knew what was relevant to their role and the system's wisdom.
And this concept of deterministic freedom sounds like a contradiction.
In the perfect system, he argues, freedom is living according to that perfect order. The conflict we see between free will and determinism is a product of our fallen anti-system state.
So real choice only exists here where the best path isn't obvious.
That's the idea. In the system, the perfect path is inherent. Freely choosing it is the ultimate freedom.
He also outlines 3 ways of seeing the universe based on evolution.
Right. 1, disordered view state of involution. 2, ordered view, seeing natural laws more evolved. 3, unitary view, seeing everything connected to a single cause, the system most evolved understanding.
Yeah, he sees hints of this unitary view in history. Plato, Manichaeism.
He interprets figures like Plato, unmoved mover, and ideas like dualism as glimpses, fragments of the whole picture, even if they remained isolated. Christianity, he notes, tried to blend inspiration and reason.
How does reincarnation fit in?
He feels the idea of simple, ignorant spirits starting reincarnation doesn't fit the perfect initial creation. He sees teachings like Kardec's or hints in the Bible as addressing a later stage, after the fall, during our current evolution.
Evolution is systematic, directed towards spirit.
Yes, and he sees cerebralization brain development as a biological sign of this spiritualization. Intelligence becomes key for survival and progress on this path.
He also emphasizes the cosmic significance of love.
For him, the drive to spiritualize is fundamental, maybe even stronger than basic survival. Civilization itself, he thinks, is driven by this psychic activity, this move towards love and unity.
But it's not an easy path. He talks about the struggle in the material world.
He acknowledges it's hard, largely due to the anti-system's egoism. But as we evolve spiritually, reduce the focus on mere survival, there's less friction, less pain, more happiness.
The divine law of love becomes more real as we move away from matter's constraints.
Yes, and interestingly, selfless giving attracts more support, while selfish hoarding hinders it.
He even pictures a future social human body, humanity acting as one organism.
That's the vision. A future era of deep interconnectedness, cooperation replacing pure competition, moving beyond Darwinism towards shared purpose, the goal, the Christ plane, universal love, seeing self in others.
And he hopes his work contributes to a collective thought current towards this.
Yes, he believes sharing these ideas can help catalyze that evolution.
Then there's the kinetic theory of the fall, describing it in terms of dynamics.
Right, he sees the fall as changing the system's energy state. The revolt's impulse disrupted the harmonious movement.
Oh.
Part of the system's unified motion deviated. The ordered movement, initially infinite in spirit, got progressively frozen into limited dimensions, eventually our 3D reality.
And the individual I, the ego, became the center of the anti-system, leading to chaos.
Exactly. Instead of one center in God, revolt created countless ego centers. This fragmentation is the anti-system, the source of its conflict.
He also faces that big question, how could a perfect God create a system capable of falling?
He admits it's profound. But he argues our current reality, with matter and evil, points to a corruption after an initial perfect state.
So the fall, the hard lessons learned, actually reinforces perfection in the long run.
That's the implication. It prevents repetition. God's original work was perfect in design.
And God's love and respect for freedom allowed the possibility.
Yes. Forced obedience wouldn't fit the system's principles of love and spontaneous adherence based on understanding. Discipline in the system is free will. In the anti-system, it's often forced by fear.
He also suggests a symmetry. God is the system center, and an anti-center, Satan, for the anti-system.
Logic suggests it, he thinks. If there's a center of unity, God's system, it implies a corresponding center of division, Satan anti-system. The anti-system as an inverted reflection.
And this ongoing battle explains why progress is so hard.
Precisely. Evolution is a struggle. The system trying to rebuild, the anti-system resisting. That's why it's often slow and difficult. He even saw negative reactions to his own ideas as proof of this conflict between old ways and evolving truth.
What about that deep human longing for paradise? Is it just a myth?
He sees it as more an innate memory. That persistent desire for goodness and harmony, even when it seems impossible, suggests a subconscious echo of the lost system, a longing to return.
And evolution isn't random, but driven from within, a seed of the system still inside the anti-system.
Yes, the cause lies within, a spiritual drive from the original system that survived the fall. This explains the upward trend that might otherwise seem inexplicable. It's an unfolding of potential.
So the fall shattered the unity, not the individual beings. Evolution rebuilds that unity in new forms.
Correct. The building blocks remained, but their arrangement broke. Evolution reassembles them into more complex, cooperative units, moving from individuals towards collectives.
Which means our current ego, with its anti-system baggage, can't just rejoin the system as is.
Right. Evolution requires transformation, overcoming separatism, learning collective living, replacing anti-system traits with system ones. Reaching God involves merging, embracing the other.
What happened to the intelligence that guided the system, lost in the fall?
No, that intelligence God, divine law, continues guiding the anti-system back. Individuals fell into ignorance, but the knowledge itself remained intact in God and the law.
So evolution is reclaiming that lost knowledge, moving from forced obedience to conscious understanding.
Exactly. A gradual reclaiming of wisdom and true freedom.
And the suffering, the difficulties we face, they're part of that process, overcoming the anti-system.
Precisely. Resistance is part of transforming matter back to spirit, dismantling the anti-system. The difficulties are lessons, catalysts for growth.
And love, even our imperfect human love, reflects that unifying principle.
Yes. Even in its early stages, love shows the drive for unity, the joy of returning. Conflicts in love often mirror the larger anti-system struggle, but the underlying pull towards connection is powerful.
He cautions, though, that our minds and language are limited tools for grasping all this.
Absolutely. We perceive through imperfect mental images and words. Truth in our fallen state is relative, progressive. His own descriptions of the fall are approximations, successive images trying to capture a reality beyond full comprehension right now.
He also suggests creation might have been progressive in phases, and divine law foresaw the possibility of the fall.
Yes, likely gradual. And an all-encompassing divine law would inherently include the potential for deviation. So even the fall operates within a divine plan and ordered disorder.
And the fall wasn't just spatial, but a qualitative change, an involution.
Exactly. A shift in the nature of beings, contraction, introversion, materialization, rather than just moving location, happening along the lines of each being's individual nature.
So accepting multiple images or perspectives gives a fuller, though still incomplete, picture.
Precisely. Different angles reveal different facets of the inexhaustible absolute. They complement rather than contradict, offering a richer glimpse of the ultimate truth which is beyond our finite grasp.
And that inspirative phenomenon, his source, works top-down, general principles to specifics.
Yes, unlike bottom-up science, this top-down flow seems characteristic of the system itself, while the scientific method perhaps mirrors the anti-system's approach more.
His ultimate goal is for the reader to see a harmonious, logical whole that satisfies mind and spirit.
That harmonious vision, where everything fits without contradiction, represents the victory of unity, the monism he affirms, the beginning and end united in God.
And he sees his work as contributing to this, even if it challenges old ideas.
He defends the need for progress, challenging dogma that resists inquiry. He knows pioneers often face opposition from those protecting the status quo.
But the real test is the consensus of thoughtful minds over time.
Exactly. Lasting value comes from careful consideration by those genuinely seeking deeper understanding, even if initial reactions are mixed.
And in our scientific age, he feels this kind of integrated, rational, spiritual view is vital.
Crucial. To avoid slipping into pure materialism, he sees a pressing need for a framework that combines deep insight with rigorous reason.
But he offers the system humbly, as a hypothesis to be tested and built upon.
Precisely. Not the final word, but a foundation for further exploration, inviting critical testing and refinement. Advancing human thought is the aim.
He also describes that state of interior awakening, heightened clarity.
Yes, a transfer of energy to the plane of thought. Intense clarity, enhanced awareness. Not passive mediumship, but active spiritual capture. A temporary jump to a higher evolutionary level, granting deeper perception.
And the focus isn't contacting spirits, but accessing divine thought directly.
Exactly. Elevating consciousness to tap into the universal wisdom permeating the cosmos, rather than potentially limited discarnate sources.
He describes the experience of inspiration as absorbing thought, feeling, power.
An immersive, transformative state. a sense of uncontained conceptual power, shifting one's whole frame of reference. The concepts feel intensely real, almost tangible.
But it's demanding, leaves one vulnerable.
Immensely. Requires huge energy, can be challenging. Returning to normal consciousness afterward can be jarring. A real metamorphosis amidst life's challenges.
Finally, he returns to the dynamics. Fall as loss of cohesion, evolution as relearning divine law through trial and error.
Yes. The fall meant separation, change in nature. Evolution is the hard path of rediscovering the law, driven by the push and pull between system and anti-system, with the system destined to ultimately prevail.
It's a wave-like pattern of ascent.
Driven by those opposing forces, yes.
And the effort, though hard, yields inner growth and allows contribution.
Absolutely. The struggle leads to transformation and the ability to help the collective. There might be instability, the disease of evolution, some might call it, but it leads to far greater meaning and joy than stagnation.
The excerpts end with that prayer to God.
A beautiful expression of adoration for the ultimate unity, the source and destination. A fitting conclusion.
So, for you, our learner, wanting knowledge quickly but thoroughly, there's a condensed overview of Ubaldi's complex world. Maybe those aha moments came from seeing how he connects things or his optimism about evolution despite the struggle. Hopefully it feels intriguing, not overwhelming.
Absolutely. And remember, his actual work goes much deeper. If this sparked something, definitely revisit your sources or explore more Ubaldi. Think about the implications of a universe striving for reunion, the power of individual effort.
And our final thought to leave you with. If our current separateness and conflict stem from a fall from unity, what seemingly negative things in our world might actually be potentials in disguise, essential pieces just waiting to be reintegrated into harmony.
Something profound to ponder, indeed.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.